Our next question is from David, who wrote in about the University of Missouri Extension Center here in Greene County. He's concerned about losing this extension center. This is the third largest city in the state. He says some of it seems to be related to our people not fully understanding how extension is vital for the quality of life. He's concerned that with the Greene County Commission only funding extension for a minimum in 2013, there might be a skeleton staff, serious cuts might have to be made. And I wanted to bring this over to Dan Marie, not just at the extension, but at groups across the city, ranging from those publicly funded, ranging from those privately funded. What are groups doing to find funding? What are their options? What is on the table for groups like this?
I think funding and financing is a difficult issue for many right now, and nonprofits are certainly perhaps the most challenged. I think some of them are finding answers in partnering with each other. Those that maybe have linked missions or shared missions, rather than duplicate efforts, they're really finding more and more reasons to share, whether it's shared overhead, shared space, shared activities, where they can operate as best they can, most effectively, but at a lower cost. And I think a good example of this is the Creamery Arts Center downtown. It is a building where a number of organizations, I see heads in the room going like this, if you know about it, you know what I'm talking about, a number of arts organizations who are sharing in this building. They're sharing overhead. There is synergy that comes from these types of partnerships as well. So I think it's a better time than ever to share and to open those dialogues that may not have been feasible before, but there are more and more reasons to do so now.
Where should groups be looking right now? Should they be looking to the bank? Should they be looking to private funding? Should they be looking to open some of these things up to giant Kickstarter campaigns? What are the options really on the table here?
I think if you're asking me,
yes,
I think
please.
there are a lot of different options, and those organizations that have been supported by taxes, you know, even the cities, counties, and states are more challenged now, and some of those tax revenues are drying up. Some grant funding is still out there, and so more and more are really trying, although it's difficult for them to maintain staff for the grant writing process, more are turning toward grant funding. Some still do the traditional events, trying to generate revenue. It's a hodgepodge, it's a variety, but I think the more they can link their activities, the more impact they can have.
Fred, is the issues with the University of Missouri Extension here, is this on City Hall's radar? Are there any discussions going on right now about this?
Well, first of all, it's a county-funded organization, but I think the discussion that we have is that they have to become more entrepreneurial and taking a look at maybe they can't offer the full range of programs they could before, but where are the interests and where might user fees or grant funds be available that could help with that. So I think you just gotta work the issue a little bit harder.
I'm really curious, Becky, with United Way, you work with 24, is it? Nonprofits?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Here in town, a lot of different issues, a lot of different groups served. Mm-hmm. What are on their minds right now, the big issues in terms of funding?
Well, obviously the funding, and you know, the United Way campaign financially supports these 23, 24 agencies, but not 100% of their budget. So what we're asking these agencies to do, and we just went through a reviewing process called our community investment, where we brought in donors, United Way donors from a wide variety of businesses and organizations, and they reviewed these 24 agencies' budgets and made recommendations to avoid duplication, how some agencies could work together, just like Anne Marie said, work together and provide still the needed services that our people in the community say that they need and want, but in a more economical way, and not to stretch or be a negative thing for any agency's budget. So we are really in the business, number one, of trying to increase the United Way of giving, because by increasing the United Way of giving, we can provide more services out in our community. We could bring in more services and agencies. And then number two, having the agencies collaborate, work together in delivering those programs. Cost efficiency is of the utmost in existence today.
Michael, in your research, have you found that these groups around town are aware of some of the resources available to them? Is that awareness there?
It depends on which groups you're
Sure.
talking about.
I mean, across, not, maybe it's the Greene County, maybe it's the University of Missouri Extension, maybe it's some of the nonprofits that cater to very specific parts of the community, say, that Care to Learn, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the people who are receiving the services and the service delivery, the service providers, they certainly are aware of this. I think the issue is that a lot of times if people aren't dependent on those services or if they don't work in the nonprofit world, they don't have an awareness of exactly what the value of these services are for people. And that's where you start getting into some of the issues in terms of funding and things like that, because where does your funding come from? It comes from the people who can afford to provide it. And if they don't see the value or understand what is going on, then it makes it difficult to raise those funds. And you know, to me, this ties into the larger pattern of things that have been going on with higher education in the United States over the last generation or so, where we've consistently seen less state funding for education and public services, and a corresponding decline in those services at the same time. And so, you know, this is something that's been around since the Abraham Lincoln administration, and if it's something that you know, it's been very valuable for all the United States over the last 150 years, and if this is something that went away, that would be it would be a huge shame.